Well, welcome. We start this week, and I hope you had a wonderful Easter. And Easter is over, and now we've got to get down to reality. Now, politics. It's a dream deal for Iran and a nightmare for the world. That's how Benjamin Netanyahu describes the nuclear deal with Iran. But President Obama says it's a good plan. Well, now he's got to sell that good plan to Congress.
The president may have a very tough job on his hands, as many in Congress and other countries are already very skeptical about this plan. Dale Hurd has the story.
President Obama is defending the Iran deal as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, telling the New York Times, "This is our best bet by far to make sure Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon." The agreement includes what the White House says would be unprecedented inspections and monitoring of Iran's nuclear facilities for at least 20 years. It would mean Iran will have to roll back its nuclear programs, dismantle equipment, and make sure major plants are only for civilian use. And in exchange, economic sanctions against Iran would be lifted over time. But there's a problem. The deal being described by Washington is not the deal being described by Iran. In fact, Iran has formally complained that the agreement the White House is selling to the world is not what was actually accepted by Iran in the talks. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns that the deal threatens the survival of Israel. He says he's not opposed to a deal with Iran, but is opposed to a plan that leaves its nuclear program in place and gives it a path to a nuclear bomb.
I'm not trying to kill any deal. I'm trying to kill a bad deal. And you say it's a historic decision, a historic deal. It could be a historically bad deal because it leaves the preeminent terrorist state of our time with a vast nuclear infrastructure. Remember, not one centrifuge is destroyed. Thousands of centrifuges will be left spinning uranium.
Meanwhile, the White House has already begun an aggressive campaign to sell the deal to a skeptical Congress.
Many details are unknown at this point, and so I don't know how anyone could really ascertain whether this is something good or bad yet for the American citizenry.
Until they stop their provocative behavior, I think we'd be nuts to give them more money and more capability.
President Obama has vowed that Iran will not get a nuclear weapon on his watch. But Arab allies fear the White House deal will destabilize the region, creating a nuclear arms race. The White House says a so-called international mechanism will verify that Tehran doesn't cheat on the agreement, and that cannot be reassuring to Congress. Both sides will now work to finalize the agreement by the end of June. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
You know, years and years ago, we ended World War II as the victors, and then our president sat down with Joseph Stalin, and he said, you know, I'm a gentleman, and I'm going to deal with Joe Stalin as a gentleman, and so we will give him things that show what our good faith is. Well, Stalin just laughed at him. He was a tough, old-line Bolshevik, and he thought this white shoe president was a joke. And he took him for everything he could. And in the process, millions of people were under the heel of communist domination. And Roosevelt gave away a large slice of Europe. Well, Obama's the same mindset. We're going to be so nice to these people that they're going to come to the table and they're going to be nice to us. These are radical Muslims who have a Muslim theocracy that suppresses the rights of their own people. And they have been the prime agents of terror around the world. And now they've just taken over Yemen. They've got their hands on Lebanon. They've got Syria. They've got Iraq. I mean, what more is he going to give them? Well, he's going to give them a lot of money. And they are, the man who made the negotiation for Iran, is being hailed as a hero. And Obama and Kerry is saying, oh, no, these sanctions are going to be phased out over time. And the guy from Iran has said, no. Right now, sanctions are lifted. And billions of dollars will be flowing into the Iranian treasury. And what are they going to do with them? Build bombs, fund more terrorism, and go after what they themselves call the Great Satan. Would you like to sit across the table and negotiate with somebody who thinks you are Satan? What kind of a nutty deal is this? Well, President Obama is hey, by the way, the president, one way of getting rid of his critics, he brings a lawsuit against him. So he's going to indict Senator Menendez, who was against this deal in favor of Israel. He'll get him indicted, and that he'll be facing criminal charges for alleged violations. Well, the president is facing another problem. It's called a weak economy. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
In January, President Obama talked about how strong the economy is in his State of the Union address, and he promised his economic policies would continue to work. But the latest reports show more evidence that the economy is slowing down, with just over 100,000 jobs created last month. And the amount of money people bring home in an average weekly paycheck fell. Some blame the weaker economy in part that a tough winter in some parts of the country, while others say a strong dollar has hurt U.S. business overseas. Pat?
The biggest thing they won't talk about, the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, is the regulation that's being slapped on American businesses. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of regulation, which are like the Lilliputians tying up the giant Gulliver. Obama wants to just cripple American industry, and he is certainly succeeding. Of course, we're not going to be creating jobs. How can you when you've got 10 government agents on your case every time you turn around? John?
An internet fundraising campaign in support of a small-town Indiana pizzeria has seen astounding success after the media firestorm over the state's new religious freedom law. Memories Pizza in Walkerton had to close down after receiving threats for saying they serve gay customers but wouldn't cater a same-sex wedding. Supporters organized a website where people could financially help the owners. In an amazing show of support, by the time the donations closed Saturday, they had received more than $840,000, far above the original goal of $200,000. That appears to have also sparked a peak in donations for 70-year-old Baronelle Stutzman, a Washington state florist who refused to sell flowers to a same-sex couple for their wedding. She was fined $1,000 and faces a lawsuit for saying such weddings go against her Southern Baptist beliefs. She's now received over $85,000 in donations. Well, a chaplain in trouble with the Navy for his Bible-based views is getting some help from Capitol Hill. The Navy says this chaplain offended several sailors with his counseling. But as Paul Strand reports, dozens of members of Congress are warning the Navy it can't punish a chaplain for preaching his beliefs.
Lieutenant Commander Wes Motter is waiting for a potentially career-crushing decision from the Navy. Motter's lawyer says several sailors complained about what the former chaplain to the Navy SEALs told them in private counseling sessions. His alleged misdeeds include saying that homosexuality was wrong, premarital sex was shameful. Now, those views fall well within the teachings of Motter's Assemblies of God denomination. And now 35 lawmakers have sent the Navy a letter pointing out that U.S. Congress passed concrete protections for service members and chaplains' free exercise of religion.
It was kind of, I think, almost a veiled chiding by the members of Congress, saying we meant what we said when we said that we want you to protect religious freedom for our service members.
Barry points out, before these accusations, past commanders praised Motter, calling him a national asset and best of the best when it came to Navy chaplains. Paul Strand, CBN News.
CBN News will talk exclusively with Motter later this month about what it's like to have the military he served for decades threaten to kick him out for presenting his religious beliefs. Well, what would you do if you had millions of dollars to give away each year? That's a question one young seminary student had to answer when a wealthy relative passed away. As Chris Mitchell reports, it's been an unusual journey that's taken him throughout the world and now to Israel.
Walter Panzier never played wheelchair basketball until he visited this rehab center for wounded Israeli soldiers.
Oh, that was incredibly difficult. They made it look so easy.
Panzier and 3 other trustees oversee one of the largest foundations in the world, the Leona Helmsley Charitable Trust. They donate millions each year to worthy projects around the world, like the Israel Rehab Center. Helmsley built a hotel and real estate empire estimated at $6 billion. She owned the Empire State Building and gained a reputation, to put it mildly, as a difficult boss. When she named her grandson as a trustee, It was something he never expected.
This is amazing. As a Christian, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, would I be standing here in Israel? I'd say absolutely not. As I went through my pastoral studies, if I was asked if I was going to be in Israel helping Israelis, helping the poor across Africa with our other projects and helping people in the United States, I would never believe it in a million years. This is truly a blessing to be here.
They support a number of projects in Israel, including one of the world's leading brain research centers. Fellow trustee Sandy Frankel feels it's always timely to bless Israel.
Every time is an important time, and whenever now is the most important time. Tomorrow will be the most important time, even more important than today. When you think about Israel, a flower flourishing in a tsunami of war and hatred and upheaval in this part of the world, and still it manages to flourish, it's a miracle.
Absolutely. Israel is the light to the nations, and the world, I feel, doesn't understand that. There's so much where they're caught up on the conflicts that's going on in Israel. And there's so much more to Israel than just the conflicts. There's wonderful scientific research being done here. There's wonderful humanitarian aid being done here. That's not getting reported by mainstream press.
During their visit, a terror attack took place in Tel Aviv, while a border incident flared along the northern border with Lebanon. Yet life goes on.
And we hear the same thing over and over again, how strong the Israeli will is here, how strong the people are. Even at horrible times with rockets coming in and at a brink of war, people are at peace here. People go on with their daily lives.
When you help Israel, you help the world. That's what people don't realize. Israelis aren't an inward people who are trying only to help themselves. What they do benefits the world.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, a remarkable journey indeed.
It is indeed, and to think that Harry Helmsley's fortune is being used and helped that way, that's great. He's Jewish. I think Leona Helmsley was Jewish, but it's interesting that their grandson is Christian. And
what a wonderful thing
it
to be able to take.
have that kind of money available to
Yes.
help, and to be able to help a country that's doing the thing that Israel's doing.